Today's episode of Dolly Designs is going to be an eclectic mix of different projects I've been working on for the past few months. It's not all of my crafty stuff. Sometimes that gets included in transformation videos or Dolly diaries, but these were just some random things that I did, so you can expect to see earring making, hair accessories, backdrops. I used resin, I made some bracelets. I did a lot of different things over the past few months, so I hope you enjoy, and of course there will be pictures of these creations, or the majority of them if there was enough to fill out a collage for my albums on Flickr. If you're interested, you don't need a Flickr to view it. And without further ado, let's get into the video. This very enormous Lollipop came in a set from Walmart that I got in 2021 on the after Christmas clearance sales. It was a UV resin kit for kids, and it was maybe $2, and I looked at the molds that it came with and I thought, ooh, that could be fun for my dolls. The resin itself was like that jelly stuff, so I played around with it, but it wasn't really good for use with doll accessories because it was kind of like sticky-ish. I did make a few like props we could use in the photos that we take, but not for hair accessories. So these molds are really, really large. There are a few tinier ones, and I had never actually gotten to play with this Lollipop one before because I didn't have an outfit that it would be suitable with, but I thought summer's me outfit, girl of the year summer, this was perfect. So the little paw prints, those are polymer clay shapes that I got on sale at Michael's, I think at the end of 2020, and I believe I also had a gift card. And then the little circles, those are actual sprinkles left over from a gingerbread house kit, and I put a layer of UV resin down, and then I used a toothpick to kind of place all of these little shapes, and I had to make sure they were fully sunken into the resin because I was going to do this in layers because I made a popsicle one first, but it's later in the video just because of the way I edited it. But I learned I probably should do layers because I also wanted there to be glitter. So you can see here I'm doing an ombre of glitter to match earrings I made to go with Summer's outfit. Those were not featured in this video. I started making this Dolly Designs episode after the fact, and I hadn't thought to make her a hair accessory at that point, but since I had all my stuff out to make accessories for new outfits we had gotten, I was like, oh, Summer should have a hair clip, and this Lollipop mold was perfect. So these glitters, which I got at Walmart, were the same types that I used for her little star resin earrings, and I was running out of this UV resin. This was my first bottle I ever got at the end of 2020, and I love it. I used it for so many earrings, and like also as like a coating for polymer clay charms I made for my dolls. Luckily I had the forethought to order another bottle of UV resin a while ago when I needed something to qualify for free shipping on Amazon, so you'll see me switch bottles and it comes out much better. But it was kind of the air from inside the bottle that was empty was making the glitter move around, which was kind of annoying. But eventually I finally emptied that and was able to open my new bottle, which was way easier to work with, and I did make sure to kind of try to adjust the resin so it wasn't globbed on the edge. And I always like to use the UV resin to attach it to the clip. I do have to like cure it a bunch of times before doing this because you don't want tacky resin on the clip, and it also needs to be cured on the clip. This is the enormous, very tacky hair clip that I made to go with Summer's meat outfit. This is modeled on Leah. I already made these resin earrings when I got my doll, so they're not included in this video. I included the clip of them in Dolly Diaries, but I had kind of been mulling over if I wanted to make her a hair accessory, and when I had all of my stuff out and I saw this Lollipop mold, I thought, well, Summer has like a really sweets themed collection. So I used the same colors of glitter and the same kind of fade that I did for these stars, but I added, I did like a first layer, and in that first layer of resin, because this is a pretty deep mold that needed to be cured in stages, I put sprinkles, so they're real sprinkles that were left over from a gingerbread house kit we did, and then these little paw prints are from those polymer clay sets you get at Michael's for resin making that I've had for like 5 years. I got it on sale like in 2020. And I went with the paw prints because Summer is supposed to make like treats for dogs and sell them. And I picked colors that match the colors of the dress, and I think even though it's huge and obtuse, I mean, that's why I bought these molds at Walmart. These earrings for the Team AG sweater and skirt set that I got on sale, and I used these little polymer clay discs from a kit I got on Amazon Vine for free in exchange for leaving a review. They're the perfect colors. The star charms were also from Amazon Vine. Of course, I had to add stars because this is a red, white, and blue Americana style outfit, and the buttons are actually gold on the sweater, so that's why all the hardware and the stars are gold. And I love that I had those beads in the right colors. And this is the Team AG sweater and skirt set on Namari, my dress doll, who was a gift from the same people that gave me Emma. So she has these earrings. When I got this outfit, I knew right away what I wanted to do. So I was really inspired by like the stripes on this pleated skirt. And so these are like clay spacer beads from Amazon that I got through Amazon Vine. And they're really common. They have like tons of different sets of these. I only own the one because I tried to pick one that I felt like the colors would be really universal for me to use, and I didn't want to have like a billion of them. So I stacked them, and then obviously there's stars on the shirt, which I had the star charm from Amazon Vine too, but I went with gold because of the gold buttons. And also, she has these gold sparkly hair clips. But I didn't want to make, like, big, clunky gold resin ones either. I kind of wanted to keep these earrings a little bit smaller and daintier. This popsicle was supposed to be a hair clip for the Truly Me Sweet Dreams pajamas, which we got on sale in March of 2025. And I'm not going to show it right after this clip because I also made earrings for it, so you'll see it after the earrings later in the video. But these do use a lot of UV resin because of how big the molds are, and they make really large hair clips, but I just can't help myself when it comes to making gaudy accessories for the dolls, and it took a long time for this to cure. I should have done it in layers. Now, I thought of making polymer clay popsicle charms to go with the Sweet Dreams PJs outfit because the print on it has popsicles and like ice cream cones, but I had the large popsicle mold I showed in the previous clip that I hadn't really ever gotten to use, and I didn't want to have like an explosion of really large resin things on this doll, so instead I decided to use real sprinkles left over from a gingerbread house kit, and then use some glitter that's like a similar color to the satin fabric, and I would make little circular, almost donut kind of feeling earrings that would still tie in the resin and like the sprinkles and the desserty theme without being so literal and obnoxious. And you can see here I'm also adding a few of these like marbled type plastic beads that I got through Amazon Vine. I have a lot of like Amazon Vine jewelry products because that's what I do now, is I'll check for things that I think I can use, and I'm very, very particular about what I get. But Walmart no longer has like the dollar section anymore, which is a real shame. They redid our store because they added like a bigger pickup section and stuff last summer, and they rearranged everything, and although the craft section is even better than it was before, there's just more stuff. The jewelry section isn't as cheap, which is sad. So Amazon Vine has been something I rely on a bit more now, and I really like how these turned out. So the fabulous Summer is modeling the Sweet Dreams PJs. These so fit her vibe. I was very inspired by the slippers here that have sprinkles on them. So I knew I had this popsicle mold, and I don't usually have an opportunity to use it because, as you can see, it's quite large. So I didn't want to do like popsicles on popsicles. So I took the idea from the sprinkles of her slippers, and that's where I used this UV resin. These are actual real sprinkles in there. They're sugar. They won't like break down over time. I have earrings I made many years ago that are fine. But they look really cool. They match the color of the outfit. And I just think this is like the world's cutest thing. I did debate about making polymer clay charms instead, but like I said, I really wanted to use that mold. These are so cute and so well made, and they look so adorable in summer. I just have her glasses off because I was taking pictures of the earrings. These earrings were for the Fun in the Southwest travel outfit. I love the World Traveler series by American Girl. I've been getting like outfits from that collection for a few years now whenever they're like in the Last Chance outlet, or in this case, this is a relatively new outfit, but it qualified for the sale finally. It was a site-wide sale, and I was so excited to make earrings. Unfortunately, I didn't have any cactus charms that were gold, and there's gold in the outfit, so I didn't want to use silver cacti. I thought that would look kind of weird. Sometimes I like mixing metals, but I have these really cool metal discs with trees that kind of went with the print on her shirt, which I'll talk about more in the next clip when I show it. And then all of these little colorful beads. The orange and teal ones were from the dollar bags at Walmart, and then the pink ones in the middle were from a kids art kit from Walmart. We have Emma, my second Tenny doll. That was a gift, who I love. She's gorgeous. She is modeling the Fun in the Southwest travel outfit, and I decided to make these earrings to go with it. So this necklace is the factory one, and I was inspired by the gold hardware, and then there's these discs, and I thought that this like circular disc with a plant on it fit the vibe. Ideally, I would have liked to have used cactus charms, but I only had silver ones. And then this outfit has so many awesome shades of like pink and orange, peach, and then pops of teal blue, and I incorporated that into the earrings. So these big orange ones and the teal ones are from like the old dollar baggies they used to have at Walmart, and then the like clear pink one in the middle is from a kid's bracelet making kit. And this is what it looks like from the front with those earrings. And the reason why we ended up placing this particular American Girl order was because Colleen wanted Isabel's tennis outfit. She got Isabel for like kind of an early Christmas gift this year, and this was the one outfit I didn't order because I didn't want to spend a ton of money, and I knew she preferred her pajamas and New Year's outfits, but of course we had to get the tennis outfit too. We collect the historical girls' clothes. I didn't have any sporty charms, and certainly not tennis rackets, but there's some really beautiful pastel colors in the argyle print of the sweater, which I was inspired by. So I used little seed beads to make a little stack that matched those colors. All of these seed beads are some of the very first charms and beads and stuff I had for jewelry supplies. I got them back in 2012 from Walmart. I would go like every week I was grocery shopping and buy a couple of those little tubes, and I built up a collection, and you can do a lot of things with these. If you look on my Flickr album, my handmade earrings album, you can see I did like zigzags and coils. Like I did all kinds of crazy things just using head pins and these seed beads. And I still use them regularly. They're also great for holding large beads with bigger holes onto the head pins. And then I had these little balloon charms, which were from Amazon Vine. We have Isabel's tennis outfit. I made these for Colleen to go with this. I saw these balloons, and the colors of them are like a perfect match to this sweater. So how could I not use them? And I didn't have any like tennis themed charms or anything overtly sporty, so I just thought I'd use them. They kind of look like tennis rackets that are colorful from afar. And then I used these really tiny seed beads to just add a little bit of something extra without being too clunky, and I've had them forever. Those were some of my first jewelry making supplies I got at Walmart back in 2012. This is what they look like from the front. Really cute, nice pop of color without being too obtuse, and they go really well with her super green eyes too. These were earrings I made for my sister's American Girl Belle. I did like pretty much the same style earring for both of her outfits because of the charms I had that matched so very well. The polymer clay flowers I'm using here were from the kids section at Michael's. I really, really love these. The only problem is they're not always cut evenly, and the first flowers I used were a little bit on the thin side, so just from putting them on the doll, it caused the flowers to tear. But I don't have this problem with the thicker flowers, and I use jump rings to attach them and kind of stretch them out into like a chain. But sometimes I'll group them together to make bunches, but I wanted these to be slightly more dainty and elegant. And the enamel flowers are from Amazon Vine. I got one set of these for free in exchange for doing a review on Amazon, but I did purchase the second pack of them so I would have mates for all of these cool enamel charms, and Belle was the perfect candidate for them. These are the earrings I made to go with Belle's meat dress, her yellow ball gown. These polymer clay flowers match the golden yellow color of this. And then these red charms, they might not be roses, but they're like the perfect match for these ones on her dress. So these are the earrings I made to go with Belle's blue dress. I went with a similar concept with these polymer clay flowers from Michael's and these enamel charms from that Amazon Vine set, which again I needed to buy my own in order to make these earrings. But what could be more perfect than blue roses, because there weren't any red roses in that charm set. However, the blue matches this outfit and it fits with the theme of the movie. And I think they look really dainty. Didn't want anything too clunky. She looks adorable. These earrings I'm making here with polymer clay were actually my first attempt at jewelry for Summer's bake sale outfit. I didn't scrap this footage because it's part of the creative process. Like, there's a lot of times that I make something and I'm not fully satisfied, or I think of a better way, or I need to do a second attempt to work out the kinks. It's just part of the creative process, definitely, and that was so true with these earrings. So the mold I use again later, but you'll see I use resin in it. Now the reason I went for polymer clay was because these little molds, I used the bigger versions of them earlier in the video. They're from early 2021. I got them in the clearance section for like $1 or $2 for this UV jelly resin kit for kids. It was perfectly doll sized, and I'd been dying to use these cupcakes. My original plan had been to make a hair accessory, but this outfit came with a headband, so I didn't need a hair accessory. Now, these molds are not made for jewelry. They don't come with little holes in them, like a little peg to make a hole to attach a jump ring through. And once resin has cured, like UV resin, there isn't time to put a jump ring, like a head pin, rather, through the resin. It's too hard. If you're using like the 2-part epoxy resin, sometimes you can, but I really don't like using that. It would take hours to make a pair of earrings. So I thought, okay, well, the polymer clay, I can take it out of the mold and I can put an eye pin through it and just bake it in the oven. But unfortunately, the mold lost a lot of its detail because it didn't pop out nicely, and I did several attempts of this off camera. After these polymer clay charms came out of the oven, they looked kind of blobular because, like I said, when I popped the polymer clay out of the mold, it distorted some of the details, and I don't know, I liked the colors I chose, but there just wasn't a lot of definition. And I usually cover my polymer clay charms with UV resin anyways to add like a glossy layer and as a protectant of the surface. So I thought while I was doing that, I would add maybe glitter, or then I remembered I had these polymer clay paw prints that I used earlier for Summer's meat hair accessory. hair clip I made. I thought that these would be cool and maybe would mask some of the lack of detail and would add some more dimension, but I think it made it worse, to be honest with you. I don't think glitter would have helped. They just looked too big, and I fully assembled the earrings. I didn't show it, but I added like 2 beads. They were from the Walmart 98-cent baggy section that they no longer have. There were teal and pink beads that matched her dress, rather her outfit, and I added them to the top, so there was a little bit of like dangle, but they just looked very blobular, and it took me a long time to cure this resin. It was just not cooperating with me, so I went through all of that effort, but I was really hoping that maybe if I finished them and added a few extra details, I'd like them and it wouldn't all be for nothing. But at this point, I was like, I really hate these, and I just want to do something else, which you'll see I do something else in the next clip, but I did give these my best go. It just didn't work out. I thought I would try putting an eye pin in this mold. Like I said, it doesn't have a pre-made hole for attaching findings to, so I did 1 layer of resin halfway through the mold and added glitter. Then I cured that. Then I added, in the next clip you'll see I add a 2nd layer, and then I gently lay the eye pin on top of this layer so that the bottom portion is fully coated in resin. It's completely submerged. So that way it would be inside the finished earring, but then the eye part where the jump rings would attach sticks out. I wasn't sure if this would work, but it did. This made the mold keep its definition. I was able to use this glitter that was from like a sand art thing my sister brought home from work a long time ago, and it just looked much, much better. These are the earrings I made for summer, the 2nd pair, because I didn't like the first polymer clay ones I attempted. I was able to get the head pins in the mold by filling it, curing it halfway through, and then placing the head pin so it was poking out, the eye pin rather, sticking the eye pin so it was poking out, and then putting resin over top of that. So I can use these molds for earrings, as long as they are appropriately sized. And they came with a UV jelly resin kit for kids, so they're clear, so I can use them obviously with UV resin. If they're opaque molds, you can't. I think they came out really cute and they match the outfit well. You know, there's the cupcake and then the color scheme, and also I think the little sequin skirt is kind of captured in the sequin starflakes. I love this outfit and I like the 2nd pair of earrings I made. These were earrings I made to go with the Team AG navy dress set that we got on a sale. I really loved this outfit, and although I had molds that were actual stars, I was really inspired by the gold foil stars on the dress itself, and I happened to have these sequins. I got them in like a big pack at Walmart. It was like 4 types in one container. So I cured them in resin, and I decided not to add any colors, so that way it would just be clear with the cool little foil stars. And then I added some navy blue and red crystals that are also from Walmart, but I've had them for like a billion years, probably 10 plus years, just to make the earrings dangle a little bit more and add some of that like red, white, and blue motif too. They were pretty easy to make. It's really just about having the resin cure properly. I forgot to film a clip of these on Belle, but this is what the earrings looked like all done. You can see they match the dress, and they're really large, but I think they're super cute. I found this Belle at a thrift store. She's an old Disney store doll, so I took some armature wire I originally used for waist pieces for stands, but it's a little too flexible. I measured it over her head, took this ribbon that was from a gift bag of sorts, and I hot glued it into place. I don't like hot glue for certain things, but I like how quickly it dries for making headbands, and it usually holds up pretty well for this sort of hairpiece. And then I kind of tucked the little ends in there, and it was the perfect gold to match her dress. This was quote masquerade bell, and I'm just making sure everything is glued down and then all the little strings are gone. And of course that wasn't quite enough. I didn't want it to be plain gold, so I had these fabric roses, which these are all from Walmart. Various packs I've gotten over the years. I'm kind of obsessed with these sorts of embellishments. I bent the wire for the shape of Belle's head because that way I knew where the roses would fall. And then I'm carefully gluing them, making sure there's enough glue but not too much, and that they're slightly staggered in position. I didn't want them to like all be facing perfectly forward because that wasn't the vibe I was going for. I put several all around the headband. And like I said, the hot glue works pretty well for this, and I like how quick it dries and I don't have to worry about it getting in the doll's hair. And then this was it on Belle after I tried it on her, and I think it looks really cute with her outfit. I wanted to make hair accessories for these cheap 2015 Cheerleader Monster High dolls, so I started out by cutting 4 ribbons all the same length because I was going to tie these around the ponytails I was going to style their hair into. And the reason I have this candle out is because I'm melting the little edges of the ribbon after I cut it to prevent it from fraying. They weren't frayed right after I cut, but this is something I do for preventative reasons. And then I wanted to sew little fabric bows. I got these at Walmart that kind of complemented the colors of their uniforms. Sorry, some of it was off camera. I had my mini tripod on the table, but you can kind of see here what I'm doing. I stitched it on really well. I don't like to hot glue for this type of scenario because it just doesn't hold up when you're like tying things in and out of like the doll's hair. And I wanted the ribbon to be extra long because you're going to see they become tassels. So the 2 pink ones are for Draculaura and then the 2 blue ones are for Frankie. But other than that, they are the same. I wanted them to like coordinate but not be exactly identical. And I made sure, like I said, to stitch these on really, really well. And although their hair wasn't originally rooted to be styled in 2 ponytails, that was my vision for these bows. So I had to put their hair in elastics first and then tie the new hair accessories over just as decor. I mean, I didn't have to use the elastics, I just thought it would keep their hair neater, and it worked out really, really well. And since my sister was going to be setting up a little photo of them for Flickr as like a little line picture for my Collections and Lines album, I decided to make pom-poms. I have this black embroidery floss type stuff on a spool. I just found it around the house. It must have been my dad's. I don't know what he was using it for. But I looped it around my hand and then tied a piece of this embroidery floss in the center, and then I snipped the loops and then fluff it out to make pom-poms. I did this 4 times, so each girl would have 2 pom-poms. I forgot to show them, but they're not that impressive. It was my first time making them, but they turned out pretty cute, and Colin used them for other photos. The little bows all finished. I wanted them to have a little extra pizzazz because they're such cheap dolls. So this Frankie was a gift that I got in 2023, and then a few months later I found Draculaura at the local flea market, and I've been meaning to make them something, but I didn't want to do like a crown of flowers or something like that. I wanted it to look kind of cheerleady. So I think that these are really cute, and they make them look a little bit fancier, and Colleen is going to be taking a little line photo with them. These were earrings I experimented with making for my Rainbow High watercolor and create doll. I got her on clearance at Target around this time. I really liked these puzzle molds, but this is an experimental pair I tried with the watercolor powders sold with the doll. I didn't like the way the colors looked once I cured this resin, and I also realized that this mold was too thick for my jump rings, so I figured that out after I made a pair that I really did quite like. But you can see I was mixing the powder in, and it would have worked if I liked the colors. I just didn't feel like they were really vibrant enough, so I might use them for future use with resin. My sister will paint with them. Next two pairs of earrings are for dolls I've had for a very, very long time. I got them in 2012, my Bratz twins, Sorel and Keelan. So last year when we finished up our Flickr retake project, one of Keelan's earrings went, one of Sorel's earrings went missing after we took the pictures, and I looked for it for months. Like, even when I made my bed, I moved the mattress and everything, and I could not find it. I have no clue where it went. It was just a cheapy little earring. It was kind of annoying, but they have such cool color palettes and stuff, so I was like, I'm gonna make my own pair. It was on my whiteboard for a while, and I finally got around to doing it when I had my resin out. And I decided, Keelan has both of her earrings, but it wouldn't be fair to make one twin a pair of earrings and not the other, and that way they would coordinate. So I played around with these Dollar Tree resin molds, and I have these little polymer clay shapes from Michael's. I got them on sale many years ago. With Keelan's, I wanted to do glitter because she has this glittery belt. This was my tester earring. You'll see later that I had to do it in layers in order to make it look better. So I accidentally bought a duplicate of this mold at the Dollar Tree, which is fine because while I'm waiting for things to cure, I made Sorel and Keelan's other earrings to match, and you can see that I, like I said, didn't want to do any color for Sorel's because I wanted the little heart polymer charms to show up really nicely. And then this is the final version of Keelan's that I settled on, so I decided to cure it in layers. So I'm going to put the little smiley face polymer clay charm in the center, and then I'm going to cure it and then do another layer of glitter and more resin over it. You can see these are the ones I'm pulling out to see how they turned out, and I was pretty satisfied with that. And at this stage I'm also making sure that I like them compared to the size of the doll, and I had to clean up my mold and move some glitter around. Can get very messy. Now I'm making Keelan's other earring, and this one. At this point, Sorel's are done. So it's kind of like fiddly, because sometimes you have to cure in layers when working with resin, especially because I don't think I have the best lamp, to be honest. I got it like 5 years ago on Amazon, and it could be also the resin, but sometimes the stuff is still pretty sticky, or in this case, you can see there was like a pool of resin in the center of that puzzle piece, so yeah, sometimes you need to do thin layers because it won't cure right, or you have to cure it like a bunch of times. So this is the second earring. So I wanted to do the whole rainbow, but the little puzzle pieces weren't big enough to do like the entire rainbow in one. So this is the warm colors, like the red, orange, yellow. I used pink because I didn't have red glitter that would blend, and I also thought the pink fit the vibe of Tamika better. And now we're back to Sorel and Keelan's charms, and you can see I put like cured charms back under the lamp to make sure they were cured, because you don't want any sticky stuff in your doll. in your doll's hair or whatever, so I learned that the hard way. So sometimes patience is key with resin, and I also try to clean up the edges the best I can when using like glitter in these smaller molds, because if not, you get like the crusty bits on the outside, which do come off, but it kind of creates a little extra work. So I'm doing a lot of back and forth here, curing things, making the second earring. I didn't film like every little step. So this is the second earring for Tamika. This is the green, blue, and the violet side. And again, these aren't like perfect rainbow shades, but that's what I had on hand, and I thought they worked well with her. And I'm constantly checking, making sure I like the way these look against the dolls. You can't see them in frame, but they were on my desk the whole time. And I'm seeing if I like the finished product, making Keelan's other earring. You get the idea. So this is a stage where I added the jump rings for connecting these charms I made out of resin to the actual earrings. And I also chose to add some polymer clay circles, or like spacer beads, to Sorel and Keelan's to kind of tie them in together, and because their charms were small enough where I could get away with adding a little bit more so they could dangle, whereas the puzzle pieces, they were too long. If I had done any other beads with them, they would have been like way past her collarbone area. This is also the part where I realized that the puzzle pieces I spent all that time on were too thick. I couldn't get the jump ring through them all the way, even my like largest sized jump ring, and I didn't really want to use an enormous jump ring, so off camera I believe I make my final pair, and I only filled the molds up halfway, so that way they wouldn't be as thick. So that's a trick if your mold is too thick. So we have Sorel and Keelan's earrings. I tried to make them coordinate but not match. So I used the same polymer clay spacer beads for like above the resin, and I used resin on both, and then polymer clay shapes in the middle. But I went with like purple and pink hearts in a heart-shaped mold for Sorel. And then for Keelan, I did a star mold with just a single smiley face. And I chose blue glitter because of the blue band on her skirt. I think they look really cute, and I like these earrings so much better than the ones that came with them, because the ones that came with them are nice molds, but they were really cheap plastic. I do have Keelan's whole pair, but not one of Sorel's. I have no clue where it went. And then we have Miss Rainbow High. Her name is Tamika. I named her Tamika. And I didn't want to like use any of the dye that came with her on the doll or her clothes because it's water soluble, so it wouldn't stay on. That sounds messy. But I thought I would make her earrings rainbow colored, so I split the rainbow between the two earrings, and I thought these puzzle pieces were super cute. She'd get away with them because she's got such a big head, and there'd be lots of space to do like the blended rainbow colors, and I think that they pop against her like stark white outfit. I am always making name bracelets for my American girls, but I don't usually film it because it's a pretty simple process. I have a bunch of this colorful cord I got at the Dollar Tree 4+ years ago, and then whatever beads are like have wide enough holes to be strung on them, I will pick the colors I want, and then the letter beads are from the Dollar Tree too. Unfortunately, I ran out of vowels when I made Colleen's Magic Attic dolls earrings, so that's why I'm only making Heather's here, because I was able to make all of her other girls' bracelets, but then I realized I did not have 2 more E's for Heather, so I had to go to the dollar store and buy a few more packs, which was kind of annoying because I have all of these consonants. And then the very first bracelet I had already made, it says Christine. It's actually for my sister's friend's daughter. We gave her some My Life As stuff, some dolls, and a couple of dolls Uncle Ray rescued from the garbage for us many years ago. They're like our generation My Life As, because she's of that age and she really, really loved the one named Christine. I found this amazing Gnome calendar at a thrift store for like $2, and I just had to make it into a backdrop for my dolls. It's perfect. It's like super whimsical. It's got beautiful artwork. It unfortunately was weird dimensions, so it didn't fit in my paper guillotine, and I usually like to use that because it's quicker and makes really crisp lines, but it was easy to cut down the seams of each of the pages. They kind of had a strange plastic-like coating. This piece of cardboard I had been using to keep the cats out of a certain area of the basement because it was where Quasimodo used to not use a litter box when we first got him, and I just had it kind of like in that area, slowly letting him into certain rooms. It's been fine, so this cardboard was still in really good shape, so I decided I would just use it for this calendar instead of buying a new piece of cardboard. And I'm using, it's not Mod Podge, it's actually Elmer's glue that I got in like a big gallon jug that I pour into this because both Colin and I use it all the time. And I use a paintbrush to spread it out onto the cardboard, and then I lay the picture on top of it. I always use both sides of the cardboard box, so I had some Sesame Street calendar pictures that were kind of too small, so I needed a background, and this contact paper was left over from my shelves. I decorated them with my doll shelves many years ago. I've since redone them, and I just stuck it down and used the cuttings to fill in that gap on top. Off camera, I trimmed the extra cardboard before putting the contact paper on because these pictures were so small there was going to be a lot of background, so I wanted to know the exact area I was working with for them. So I used all 12 of the pictures from the calendar. We actually use this calendar too. It's from 2022, so it's been sitting around a while, and Colin had specifically wanted to use it at some point. That's why I prioritized making it. I also used the cover, but there was still like a little gap, so I just took these Sesame Street coloring book pages. No idea where the coloring book came from, it was used, but Colin and I had colored in a few things a long time ago, so I took some of the pictures I liked and I cut them out and glued them in that empty space so that way there wouldn't be any weird gaps. And I had to make sure to use like a very little glue on these, on the calendar pictures and the cutouts, because the paper was so thin. I didn't want it like globbing it and making it too wet. I always buy clear contact paper to cover my backdrops, and I do all the edges and stuff in tape so they're fully laminated. But you can see here, this roll of contact paper, it's the only time I've had this problem. It did it a few other times too. The backing ripped unevenly and it got stuck, and these are very thin pages, so you can see it's ripping my calendar pictures as I'm trying to fix it. Usually the contact paper, it's meant to be repositioned. It doesn't do that. Maybe it'll take like a little bit off if the glue is still kind of wet, but it really ripped. So I had to be very careful to lay everything back down, and there was a tiny little shred of the backing left. You can kind of see it on one of the characters' heads over there, but I was not going to mangle it any further. I was so annoyed. I was swearing, and I was very, very upset. So that was frustrating. And then I realized when I went to finish the other side that I ran out of contact paper, so I bought contact paper the next day at Walmart so I could finish it, which wasn't a big deal because it had been a long time since I bought one of the rolls. It's not like I make backdrops constantly like I used to. But that was alright because I was still able to tape up the edges, and there is like a few inches above the contact paper because I get the taller sheets that I just finished off with tape, so it's fully laminated and rather than have weird cuttings. And the problem with using the contact paper, like the colorful contact paper on the cardboard, is it doesn't actually stick. You could see it was kind of lifting up when I was putting the tape down, so I had to tape the edges first so I could make sure it was secure, but it was leftover. I wasn't going to use it for anything else. I had already made flooring for the dolls out of it, and I'm not going to use it on my shelves, and I've had it literally for 10 years. Over 10 years. I bought it in 2014, and it was on my shelves for 7 years, and that was the leftovers. But I managed to make it work, even though the calendar kind of got a little mangled, and even though I ran out of supplies and I had to wait until the next day to finish. But such is life. It's not like you're going to be able to tell really in photos. So this is the backdrop all done. This is the adorable gnome calendar. I put all my favorite pictures towards the bottom because that's what's going to be photographed more often, and then the seasonal type pictures and the ones I liked less were on the top. Beautiful, beautiful artwork. So cute, so whimsical. And this was the Sesame Street side. I think this contact paper actually worked pretty well with it. And this one, This Is Fun in the Sun, is the one that got damaged, but it's only slightly haggard, and it's the backdrop, it's not in the foreground. So I'm glad I got to finally use this calendar. I already had the calendar taken apart, by the way, which is why you didn't see me doing it. I had done it last time I was making backdrops, and those are the coloring book pages. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Dolly Designs. Feel free to check out my Dolly Designs playlist if you like these sorts of crafty videos. And you can check out all of my different crafts and whatnot on my Flickr. You don't need a Flickr to view it. It's linked below. And until next time, love your dolls, love yourself, and love your life.